We've all heard of burnout, right? But what if it isn't just a vague feeling of being overwhelmed? What if it's a predictable biological process happening inside our brains? Well, today we're going to dig into a really fascinating framework called the MAD model, which gives us a completely new way to think about this all too common problem.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever had this happen? You're absolutely on fire, you're in the zone, getting so much done, and then, boom, you just hit a wall. A wall of exhaustion that feels like it came out of nowhere. It seems like a total paradox, but it turns out there might be a very clear biological reason for this exact cycle.
And that's where MAD theory comes into play. It offers a biological answer to that very paradox. It suggests that these huge swings in our energy levels aren't about a lack of willpower or some kind of character flaw. No. It frames them as the predictable outcome of physical stuff happening with the little workers inside our heads, our neurons.
Okay, so to really get this theory, you have to meet the three main characters in this whole story. Think of them as the workers inside your brain. We've got the M, the A, and the D cells, and each one has a very different way of responding to being stimulated.
First up, we have the M cell. The M is for manic. Think of this one as the amplifier in your brain. The more you use it, the more it revs up, getting faster and more powerful. This is awesome for learning new things or feeling that amazing rush of enthusiasm. But, just like an engine that's constantly redlining, it's got a big risk of completely burning out.
Then you've got the A cell, for anancastic. Now, anancastic is just a fancy word for being meticulous or compulsive. And really, you can just think of this cell as your brain's steady, reliable workhorse. You give it an input, it gives you the same output over and over. It's the source of our perseverance, that ability to just keep on chugging along. That is, until it runs out of gas.
And last but not least, we've got the D cell, for depressive. Now listen, this one is absolutely crucial. The D cell isn't broken or faulty, it's the protector. It fires a few times and then it just stops. Its entire job is to be a biological safety switch, to cut the power before our body suffers real damage from being pushed too hard. It's literally there to prevent a catastrophic system failure.
So let's just quickly recap the team. You've got your M cell, the amplifier, bringing that enthusiasm. You've got your A cell, the workhorse, giving you that steady perseverance. And you have your D cell, the protector, which hits the brakes and is linked to that feeling of just having no energy left. These three little guys are basically the foundation for our energy levels.
All right, so we've met the players. Now let's see how this all fits together. We're going to connect the dots and show how these individual cells create a chain reaction, a cascade that takes us from feeling on top of the world to being completely and utterly drained. And here it is. This is the absolute core of the whole theory. It's called the primacy of mania hypothesis. And what it says is that a depressive state, that profound exhaustion, doesn't just show up out of the blue. It is always preceded by a period of hyperactivity, even if it's a really subtle one. That feeling of being on fire is actually the first step on the road to burnout.
So here's how that chain reaction unfolds. Step 1, it all starts with hyperactivity. Some kind of stressor comes along and it kicks your M cells into overdrive. You feel amazing. Then, step 2, the M cells run out of juice and just stop working. So what happens? Step 3, you try to push through, relying on sheer grit, using your steady A cells. But they can't handle that load, and pretty soon you get to step 4. They collapse too. And finally, step 5, with your M and A cells offline, the only thing left running is the D cells protective program, which forces a total system shutdown.
This leads us to a really important question, right? Why does it feel like this burnout cascade is happening to everybody these days? Well, the theory has a pretty compelling answer, and it has everything to do with modern work and a critical missing signal.
Just look at this comparison. It really lays out the whole problem. Think about it. With old-school physical labor, your body was the emergency brake. You pull a muscle, you tear a tendon, you're forced to stop and rest, long before your brain cells get exhausted. But with today's mental labor, that physical stop sign is just gone. We can keep pushing our brains long after our bodies are exhausted, driving those M and S cells right off a cliff.
And this idea comes straight from the research. You don't have to read all the text here, but the key point is that today's work, which is all about information, doesn't have those built-in physical stoppers that used to protect us. There's no muscle tearing to tell us when we've gone too far, and that lets us push our neurons way, way beyond their natural biological limits.
So, knowing all this, is there anything we can actually do about it? Yes, absolutely. Once you understand this biological mechanism, it gives you a whole new toolbox for thinking about how to manage your mental energy and, maybe prevent that burnout cascade from ever even starting.
And we're not talking about generic advice here.
This is about specific strategies for your neuronal health. The big idea is to shift from that push-hard-at-all-cost mindset to one of distributing your exertion. That means breaking down big tasks, making sure you actually recover every day, and practicing what the theory calls living at 60%. Basically, you intentionally operate below your max so you don't redline those M cells. And maybe the most important part? Learning to see that fired-up feeling not as a green light to floor it, but as a yellow light telling you it's time to start pacing yourself.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. This theory totally reframes burnout. It's not a personal failure. It's a biological safety system doing its job perfectly. So the real question for all of us is, how can we get better at reading our own internal dashboard? How can we learn to spot those flashing warning lights of M cell hyperactivity before the whole engine is forced to shut down?